First, I'd just like to make the point that we're very fortunate that His Majesty has allowed us to use Buckingham Palace for this event, and I need to say that.
It happened at exactly 11:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. The highly secure digital royal calendar, accessible only to a handful of senior palace aides, suddenly refreshed. 52 highly publicized royal engagements, state dinners, charity galas, military reviews. They didn't just shift dates, they vanished entirely. Queen Camilla's entire official schedule was wiped completely blank in a single keystroke. 5 minutes later, a single dark green Range Rover pulled up to the heavily guarded rear gates of Buckingham Palace. Princess Anne stepped out, and the monarchy permanently changed. The midnight erasure. There was no press release. No gentle, carefully worded statement came from the communications office. There was only the sudden, blinding absence of a queen consort. Inside the palace, the panic was immediate. Junior staff members stared at their glowing monitors in total disbelief. Red lines had been brutally slashed through months of meticulous planning. A high-profile hospital visit in London? Cancelled. A lavish state banquet meant to honor foreign dignitaries? Reassigned. A massive, highly anticipated military review at Sandhurst? Erased. In the ruthless, ticking clock world of the British monarchy, you do not cancel an engagement. You show up if you are tired. You show up if you are grieving. You show up if you are actively bleeding. That is the unwritten law of the firm. But suddenly, the wife of the reigning king was entirely grounded. At exactly 11:19 p.m., the heavy wooden doors of the king's private study opened. Princess Anne walked in. She wasn't wearing a tiara. She wasn't wearing a custom designer gown. She was wearing a worn, tailored tweed jacket and practical riding boots. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had been working for the crown for 5 straight decades without a single complaint. She didn't knock. She didn't wait for permission. She carried a massive, thick leather binder under her right arm. Inside that binder were the shattered remains of Camilla's entire royal agenda. 2 of the king's most senior private secretaries were already standing in the room. They looked pale. They looked terrified. They knew exactly what this late-night meeting actually meant. The public would soon be fed a comfortable, easily digestible lie. They would hear words like exhaustion. They would read carefully crafted paragraphs about rest, recovery, and doctor's orders. But the staff in that room knew the brutal truth. This wasn't a temporary medical break. This was a hostile takeover. This was the complete structural removal of Camilla from the monarchy's front lines. And the person stepping directly into the vacuum wasn't the Prince of Wales. It was the king's fiercely loyal, notoriously intimidating younger sister. Anne slammed the leather binder onto the polished mahogany desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. She didn't ask her brother what he wanted to do. She looked King Charles directly in the eyes. "I will take the military patronages first." That single sentence didn't just break the silence. It broke the existing hierarchy. Because nobody dictates terms to the king. Unless, of course, the king is completely cornered by a crisis he cannot publicly admit. Camilla's staff had already been locked out of their primary email servers. Their office phones had been securely rerouted. The nighttime maintenance crew was already unscrewing the physical brass nameplates on their office doors. It was absolute surgical precision. In less than 20 minutes, a woman who had fought for decades to wear the crown was quietly, ruthlessly benched. And the hardest working woman in the history of the royal family had just taken her place. The Iron Princess steps in. The sun rose the next morning over a completely different royal landscape. The sheer volume of work that Camilla had left behind was staggering. Being a working senior royal isn't just waving at crowds from a balcony. It is a grinding, never-ending corporate machine. It involves reading thousands of pages of detailed intelligence briefings. It involves remembering the names of hundreds of charity directors. It involves standing for 6 hours straight on cold concrete while smiling at strangers. Camilla had deeply struggled with the brutal pace. She was older. She had never been raised in this unique, punishing environment. But Princess Anne? Anne was forged in this exact fire. She is widely known inside the palace walls as the Iron Princess. She famously refuses to let anyone open car doors for her. She refuses to use a teleprompter. She refuses to shake hands if she doesn't have the time to look the person directly in the eye. She completes over 500 official royal engagements every single year. That is more than the king. That is more than William and Kate combined. And now she was officially absorbing Camilla's massive workload on top of her own. Palace aides watched in sheer awe as Anne immediately began tearing through Camilla's abandoned schedule. She didn't gently review the files. She aggressively interrogated them. At 8 a.m. sharp, Anne held her first meeting with Camilla's former charity coordinators. The atmosphere in the room was terrifying. Camilla's style had always been relaxed, gentle. She liked to chat. She liked long lunches with wealthy donors. Anne despises small talk. She sat at the head of the long table. She didn't offer anyone tea. She opened the first dossier. It was for a major domestic abuse charity that Camilla had championed for years. Anne looked at the charity director. Your administrative overhead has increased by 12% in 2 years, yet your direct victim outreach has dropped by 4%. Why? The director froze. The blood drained from his face. Camilla had never asked a question like that. Camilla smiled for the cameras and cut the ribbons. Anne was different. Anne had actually read the fine print. She had read the financial disclosures that everyone else in the palace ignored. I will give you 3 weeks to restructure your funding, Anne stated coldly, or the royal warrant will be completely revoked. The message was instantly sent across the entire royal network. The soft, gentle era of Queen Camilla's patronage was officially dead. The era of the Iron Princess had begun. And this wasn't just about charity work. This was about absolute survival. The monarchy was bleeding public support. The scandals were piling up. The public was tired of the endless drama, the complaining, and the sheer excess. Anne understood something that Camilla never fully grasped. The British public does not care if you are tired. They do not care if you are stressed. They pay millions of pounds a year for a service. And Anne was there to forcefully deliver that service, whether her brother liked it or not. The king's heartbreak in the ink. You have to understand the deep, agonizing humiliation this caused King Charles. He had fought his entire adult life for Camilla. He had destroyed his first marriage for her. He had risked his absolute popularity with the British public for her. He had spent 20 years meticulously running a billion-dollar PR campaign to get the public to accept her as queen. It was his ultimate, crowning victory. And now he was being forced to sign it all away on a piece of thick parchment. The transfer of power wasn't just a verbal agreement. It had to be legally codified. Under the strict rules of the royal household, official duties, state patronages, and military colonelcies must be formally transferred via royal decree. At exactly 2 p.m. the following afternoon, Charles sat alone at his desk. The document sat before him. It was formally titled the Letters Patent of Delegation. It officially stripped Queen Camilla of her active, frontline duties and transferred total operational authority to Princess Anne. Charles held his gold fountain pen. His hand was reportedly shaking. He wasn't just signing away his wife's schedule, he was signing away her relevance. He was publicly admitting that the woman he loved could not handle the very job he had promised she was perfectly built for. But he had absolutely no choice. The palace machinery had violently turned against her. Senior government officials had quietly warned the king that Camilla's frequent, unexplained absences and sudden cancellations were becoming a massive national embarrassment. Foreign ambassadors were feeling directly slighted. Military regiments were feeling abandoned by their royal colonel. The crown was looking weak, and weakness is the one thing the firm cannot survive. So Charles did what his mother, Queen Elizabeth, had brutally taught him. He put the crown before his heart. He pressed the pen to the paper. He signed his heavy, sprawling signature at the bottom of the page. Charles R. The ink was barely dry before a waiting secretary whisked away the document. It was immediately rushed to the royal archives to be legally sealed. Charles reportedly didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the afternoon. He sat alone in his study, staring out the window at the gray London sky. He had finally made her a queen, but in a single, devastating stroke of a pen, he had just turned her into a ghost. Camilla was still officially married to the king. She still lived in the palace. She still had access to the jewelry vault. But without her duties, without her patronages, without her scheduled appearances, what exactly was she? She was just a very wealthy woman trapped inside a gilded cage, while Princess Anne was outside aggressively ruling the empire. The military rebellion. The most explosive part of this entire takeover wasn't the charities, it wasn't the hospital visits, it was the military. The British Armed Forces have a deeply unique, almost sacred relationship with the royal family. They do not swear allegiance to the parliament. They swear an oath directly to the monarch and their heirs. Having a royal as your regiment's colonel-in-chief is a massive point of fierce pride. Camilla had been granted several highly prestigious military titles upon becoming queen. She was the colonel of the Grenadier Guards. It is one of the most senior, elite infantry regiments in the entire British Army. But the military fiercely respects one thing above all else: duty. And Camilla had been quietly skipping important military reviews. She had sent last-minute apologies to deeply traditional regimental dinners. The grumbling within the barracks had grown from a whisper into a loud, undeniable roar. Senior generals had reportedly taken Charles aside and warned him. The troops were losing absolute respect for their royal colonel. This is highly dangerous territory for a king. You cannot lose the respect of the armed forces. So when Princess Anne's Range Rover pulled up to the Wellington Barracks on a freezing Thursday morning, the atmosphere was thick with intense anticipation. Anne was already the colonel of the Blues and Royals. She understood military discipline perfectly. She stepped out of the vehicle. She wasn't clad in a soft pastel coat dress that Camilla typically favored. Instead, Anne stood out in an impeccably tailored military uniform that exuded authority and precision. The fabric was crisp, the lines sharp, and her stature radiated confidence. Across her chest, a collection of authentic medals adorned her, each representing bravery and service earned through years of dedication and commitment. As cameras flashed, she did not greet the lenses with a gentle, demure wave, a common gesture for royals. Instead, she executed a flawless, razor-sharp salute, her hand cutting through the air with a precision that demanded respect. Before her, the entire regiment stood in perfect, rigid attention, each soldier's gaze fixed forward, embodying the discipline instilled in them. The commanding officer stepped forward, his face a mixture of surprise and respect. He returned her salute with an air of formality. "Ma'am, we were expecting Her Majesty," he stated, his voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. Anne did not waver. Her expression was as unyielding as granite, revealing nothing of her thoughts or feelings. "Her Majesty is unavailable. I am taking the inspection," she replied, her tone firm and unwavering. There was no room for elaboration or apologies, no comfort offered by way of an excuse about Camilla having come down with a cold. She asserted her authority, taking total command of the moment. For the next 2 agonizingly cold hours, Princess Anne methodically inspected every single soldier on that expansive parade square. The air was crisp and the ground was hard beneath her polished boots, but she showed no signs of discomfort, only an intense focus. With a discerning eye, she observed every detail. She singled out a young soldier whose boots lacked shine, leaving them lackluster and below the military standard. With a quiet yet firm demeanor, she approached him and pointed out the glaring imperfections. "These boots need attention," she remarked, her voice steady. She guided him meticulously through the required corrections, demonstrating how to achieve the impeccable shine that was not just expected, but demanded of every soldier. Her commitment to excellence was evident, and as she spoke, the young man absorbed her instructions, determined to meet the high expectations set before him. Her inquiries about the regiment's recent deployment to Eastern Europe were not just superficial. They were incisive and laden with intricate technical terminology that demonstrated her deep understanding of military operations. Each question reflected her genuine interest in and concern for the men and women under her command, showcasing a commitment that transcended the usual royal fare. Unlike many who merely fulfilled the ceremonial role of a royal, she carried herself with the authority of a senior commanding officer. Her presence inspired confidence. She was not merely visiting the barracks. She was leading, engaging, and connecting with the troops on a level they rarely experienced. By the time she departed the barracks, there was a palpable energy among the entire regiment. They buzzed with excitement, a feeling of camaraderie ignited by her leadership. In contrast, the military establishment felt a noticeable absence of Camilla's presence. Reports suggested that a clandestine petition began to circulate discreetly among senior military figures that very evening, outlining their preference for a more hands-on, knowledgeable royal. They had begun to voice a collective desire for Anne to take on a permanent official role with the Grenadier Guards. This petition reflected a yearning for a royal who truly grasped the immense responsibilities that came with the uniform, the weight of tradition, pride, and sacrifice associated with military life. When news of this quiet rebellion reached Camilla's private quarters at the palace, it reportedly struck her like a bolt from the blue, leaving her devastated. The facade of smiling for the press, of maintaining an image of harmony with her stepchildren, crumbled under the weight of reality. In the unforgiving world of military respect, one cannot merely feign sincerity. It is earned through genuine effort and understanding. Once respect is lost, it is nearly impossible to regain. And in a mere 2 hours, Anne had managed to eclipse Camilla, capturing the loyalty and admiration of the troops effortlessly. The heir's silent approval. Where was Prince William while his stepmother was being systematically stripped of all her power? He remained completely silent, an intentional choice. In the royal family, total silence is not an accident. It is a highly calculated strategy. If William had wanted to protect Camilla, he easily could have. As the immensely powerful Prince of Wales, he controls his own substantial PR machine and the wealthy Duchy of Cornwall. A single supportive public statement from him would have stopped the negative press. A discreetly leaked story about how much he loved and supported his stepmother would have pressured Princess Anne to back off. But William chose to do absolutely nothing. He didn't lift a finger to help her. Palace insiders noted something far more disturbing. Just 3 days after Anne orchestrated a significant scheduled takeover, William's black Audi was seen pulling into the secure entrance at St. James's Palace, where Anne holds her private offices. He wasn't there for a casual family visit. He stayed inside for over 4 hours. This was a deeply strategic war council. William and Anne are cut from the same ruthless cloth. They both detest the dramatic emotional sideshows of the royal family and fiercely protect the core institution of the crown above all personal feelings. William understands that his father's reign is merely transitional. King Charles is an older monarch, and the heavy burden of the monarchy will ultimately fall onto William's shoulders sooner than anyone wants to admit. William knows the firm must be flawless when he eventually takes over. He observed Camilla's declining work ethic, her canceled meetings, and the growing public frustration. Quietly and coldly, he agreed with Princess Anne. Camilla was becoming a significant, undeniable liability for the future of the crown. During that 4-hour secret meeting, William reportedly offered Anne his total unconditional backing, essentially giving her the royal blessing to marginalize the Queen completely. It was a brilliant and cold-blooded move. William kept his own hands clean. He didn't have to engage in an open fight with his father or publicly attack his stepmother. Instead, he allowed his fiercely efficient aunt to handle all the dirty work for him. By stepping aside, William ensured that the cancer within the monarchy was removed surgically, without a single drop of blood getting on his future crown. When Charles eventually discovered the secret meeting between his son and sister, he was utterly shattered. He realized he was surrounded. His own heir and sibling had quietly formed an unbreakable alliance against his wife. The king was technically seated on the golden throne, but the monarchy's true power had shifted dramatically to the next generation. The new power hierarchy. What exactly happens now in the royal household? The palace's public relations apparatus surged into full throttle, attempting to shield the world from a devastating structural collapse within the monarchy. In a frantic bid to maintain a facade of normalcy, they released a parade of highly edited, meticulously framed photographs showcasing Camilla smiling and engaging in various activities within the opulent walls of the palace. Official statements claim she was diligently focusing on behind-the-scenes administrative work, suggesting that her efforts were vital to the smooth operation of the royal family. Yet for those adept at reading between the lines, the stark, brutal reality was painfully evident. Camilla's calendar, once brimming with engagements and public appearances, now lay surprisingly barren. In stark contrast, Princess Anne's schedule overflowed with activity. On Monday, she was cutting ribbons at a community event in Scotland, her smile genuine and her presence commanding. By Tuesday, she was in London, reviewing troops with an air of authority that left no room for doubt about her position. On Wednesday, she hosted foreign dignitaries in Wales with grace and aplomb, showcasing her diplomatic acumen. Unlike Camilla, Anne exuded an undeniable vitality. She appeared not merely busy but triumphantly empowered. In an unprecedented turn of events within the modern monarchy, Princess Anne had emerged as the de facto queen consort, commanding respect and wielding influence without the adornment of an actual crown. She held significant power over charitable organizations, garnered the admiration of military leaders, and enjoyed the full backing of the future king, who seemed to recognize her unparalleled contributions to the royal legacy. Meanwhile, Camilla found herself increasingly alone, ensconced in the lavish confines of her private apartments, surrounded by the trappings of luxury but devoid of purpose. Over 2 long decades, she had labored valiantly to win the acceptance of the royal family and the British public alike, a struggle often marred by public disdain and the shadow cast by Princess Diana's untimely passing. After years of scrutiny and hardship, Camilla finally reached what she believed was the pinnacle of her aspirations. Yet she soon confronted a harrowing realization. The crown is not a coveted trophy one merely acquires. Instead, it is a heavy, crushing burden that demands unwavering dedication, a trait possessed by only a select few. Queen Elizabeth epitomized this relentless commitment. Princess Anne is now a testament to it. Yet Camilla, despite her tenacity, fell short in the eyes of the royal family. In a chilling demonstration of their survival instinct, the family effectively ostracized her without issuing a formal decree of divorce or a public banishment. Instead, they executed a far more insidious maneuver. They stopped needing her. They systematically erased her from the day-to-day narrative of the United Kingdom, effectively locking her away in a beautifully appointed, priceless prison, while quietly handing the keys to the empire to the very woman who had never sought such power, yet was always poised to assume that mantle. While the palace may officially designate Camilla as the queen, it is an open secret among those who inhabit the ancient, venerable walls of the monarchy. The true architect of its future is none other than the woman in the well-worn tweed jacket, the one who never complains and never feels the need to explain her actions, the Iron Princess. So who do you think wields the most power inside the royal family today? Is it the king on the throne, or the sister who stepped up when the queen stepped down? Leave your exact answer in the comments below. Then hit that subscribe button immediately. The palace may have thought they could hide this massive power shift behind closed doors, but as we've seen, the truth always finds a way to emerge.